We had a post go out and it reads like this: stop losing money with bad discount strategies. Rising ad costs is not the only thing that's hurting your margins. Higher CPMs have been the go-to narrative for brands over the last 5 years. I'm not saying that's not true, but while most brands have since recalibrated their growth model and expectations on the paid side, many have still ignored one of the largest cost centers to the business: discounts. If you're a founder, operator, CMO, CFO, here's a few things to consider before planning your next sale or promotional event. Avoid blanket discounts, focus on contribution margin, tiered up to discounts, volume-based incentives, product-specific bundles, graduated discounts, subscribe and save, and tracking the right metrics. Now, one bonus thing we include, and a lot of people don't mention this, I want to get your take on this as well, Liam. Don't believe everything you see in Shopify. If you're using slashed pricing, chances are your gross sales report straight out of Shopify is underreporting revenue and the perceived economic impact of your discount strategy. We see this a lot because a lot of the brands that we work with at Aplo, when they come to us, maybe they don't have a controller, maybe they don't have a financial team in place. So a lot of the times we'll be looking at reports pulled from Shopify, that we can pull on it from our team. And a lot of the times, some of these economic impacts are buried in those reports. So that's the first post. Liam, what are your thoughts there on the discounting side of things?
Yeah, the biggest one, I think that is something that like we see all too often is just the blanket discounting. I think a lot of times as brands mature and they grow and they become, like mid 8-figure brands and above, a lot of times they've discovered that this is not the most optimal way to discount. But a lot of times in kind of that high 7-figure range, getting into the lower 8 figures, you still see a lot of blanket discounting happening for various reasons. Sometimes it's just from a time perspective on there and they don't have time to actually dive into everything. And it's just easier to slap a discount across the board. And you will usually see an uptick across the board in terms of the actual amount of sales that you're generating. But what that's actually doing and the opportunity costs of doing the blanket discounting as opposed to really diving into what units you need to discount and what units you don't need to discount to move and achieve the same result, if not better, is something that we see a lot of. So I think you might notice that some of your best sellers really don't need to be discounted heavily to move the same amount of units, if not more units. Some of your underperformers, maybe that's what you start discounting very heavily, and you can use up to X% off language to get people into the door, click on your ads, click on your emails. And then in that process, you might still see your best sellers move at a high clip, even though you're not actually discounting them, you're just getting people to the actual site with that enticing offer. So that is the main one I'd like to focus on right off the bat because it's something we see a lot of. But curious your thoughts too, Jacob, if there's any point you want to elaborate on.
Yeah, I want to double click on blanket discounts as well. We see this evolution with brands as they scale, and I'll define scaling as either scaling in revenue, scaling in catalog size, or scaling in terms of like the business complexity. So as a brand between kind of 1 and 5 million, we often see a lot of operators kind of stick to the coupon sort of approach. Not all, obviously. A lot of brands sometimes find that either the gross margins that they have on their product don't really allow for like that type of discount strategy. So maybe they'll right off the bat have a BOGO in place, or they'll do the graduated kind of like or tiered discount strategies. But a lot of brands, especially on the smaller side, they'll typically do coupon codes, 20% off, 15% off, 25% off, and they'll do those site-wide. And it makes sense. It's really easy to communicate in an email. It's really easy to communicate in an ad. It's really easy to apply. You can do auto-apply links. You can have the little trick where you cache that discount at the start of the session. So you can hide a link inside your ad or inside your email that as soon as the person clicks and they start that session, that coupon's going to auto-apply at checkout. All of those strategies you can use, and they make it really, really easy for customers to go and redeem their discount. But then to your point, Liam, if you're just doing a site-wide discount, let's say it's 20% or 25%, you're likely over discounting on certain products that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have to. Mm-hmm. So if you want to give away 25% on products that are slow movers, they're really not selling, you just want to clear that inventory, you should do that all day long because that's probably a good trade. But if you have hero products or new arrivals that you don't need to do that, maybe if it's a new arrival, you're already kind of low on stock because it's a bet that you're making into a new category or into a new product line, you don't want to be selling those units at a lower contribution margin than you need to. And for hero products that would sell at a 10% discount or at full price, you're also not better off giving that away at 25% off. So it's this asymmetry of like where you're discounting too heavily versus where you're not discounting enough. So we often say like, if your catalog is growing and it's likely becoming a bit of an 80-20, where 80% of your sales are driven through 20% of your products, you should be heavily discounting the 80% of your inventory that's basically sitting and is non-productive, and you should be avoiding heavy discounts on the inventory that's actually driving sales that doesn't necessarily need the same incentive. And then depending on what you want your days inventory to look like and what your demand plan looks like, you want to also adjust what that pricing strategy looks like so that you can either drag out the number of days or turn units faster so that you can replenish that inventory. So whenever I think about discount strategy, that's where my mind goes. Now, obviously, you want to think about it also from like an ease of redemption standpoint. I think that's why people love coupons. That's why we see a lot of like smaller brands, as mentioned, use coupons. Yeah. It's easy for customers. It's easy for founders. It's easy for marketing teams. But as you scale, you're leaving so much money on the table, and in some cases, probably losing a lot of money by having these, what we call, bad discount strategy in place.
Yeah. I would just like to call like a really applicable example about this, because I think sometimes people question the up to X% off strategy, and just kind of clients of ours oftentimes will pose questions about our recommendation there. Like if you just walk through a mall, if you just go to a mall and you look at all this, because it's the same idea, you have a bunch of customers and people walking around a mall, tons of stores that are getting people's attention. It's all offer based. And if you see those big signs on a lot of windows, that'll be like 40% off, 50% off, 70% off, etc. Most cases, if you look at it closely, there's an up to piece on it. And you go in and there's certain items, to your point, Jake, that are listed at that really high percentage off. And there's others that aren't even on sale. And this is consistent across a lot of retailers, even more premium ones. So it's something that even more premium retailers do. And so just wanted to like tie it into a very practical example that most people have probably seen in the physical retail world. Because it's the same idea, D2C. You're just trying to get people in the door. There's an offer that you want to present them. It's all offer driven to get the eyeballs on it. And then you want to protect your margin. And you don't want to, succumb to margin erosion by discounting things that you don't need to discount even to get people into the door. I think it's an interesting topic because there's so much in there that oftentimes is overlooked when it comes to actually being more intentional with how you do discounting.
100%. And just before we do, there's this one piece on the slash pricing side that often gets lost in those gross sales reports. So in Shopify, if you're looking at your gross sales report, what you're actually going to see is the listed price that it got sold for. So how does Shopify actually calculate gross sales? Super important for anyone who's looking to implement the strategy Liam's talking about. If you go into Shopify and you pull a gross sales report, how is Shopify calculating it? It's looking at what you had at checkout, so the order that was placed, and the price per line item. So if you take that price, it's the price the customer actually ended up paying. And if they stacked a discount code on top of that, it's going to be the gross sales amount, then your discount lines in the Shopify report, and it's going to get you eventually, after returns, etc., to your net sales figure. Now, the problem is, let's say your gross sales, let's say you had, a product that sold at $50, but its original price was $100. Your gross sales report is going to reflect the price at $50, not $100. So you have a 50% discount that is buried in your gross sales. So it's not a discount line on your Shopify sales report, but your actual economic impact is not 0% off discounts. It's 50% off. So oftentimes a lot of brands actually lose that visibility if they don't do the proper accounting behind what their real economic impact of discount strategy is. And again, it's something that gets easily missed if you're just pulling the report directly from Shopify.